But terrible death was all around, and I decided my role must be to help the dying as best I could. It wasn't a question of finding the most deserving to help. All those around me were equally deserving. So I just turned to those nearest to me and tried to help one at a time. As if the brutality, the starvation and sickness, the complete absence of any resemblance of dignity was not enough. These human beings were also infested with lice, fleas, scabies, and no doubt other irritating insects as well. And of course my close contact with them caused me to be infested too. I have no idea now how many men and women died in my arms. To me at that time the numbers seemed to be endless. I really did not know what to do, and I formed no plan. But I suppose instinct took over, and I knelt down to them as they lay on the floor. All I could do was to hold them tight in my arms, close to me, and speak to them in the remnants of Yiddish I remembered from my youth. I told them they were not alone, that a fellow Jew, a friend, was with them, and I gave them little sips of water, stroked their faces, their arms and their hands. Afterwards, when they died, although some of these men and women may not have been Jews, because the Nazis incinerated priests, monks, nuns, trade unionists, those mentally ill, the infirm, gypsies, anyone who had helped a Jew, even some Allied prisoners of war. I recited the Kaddish, the sanctification of the Almighty, recited one on his face to the greatest of tragedies, publicly affirming one's belief in God. However, I do remember, and will never forget, the last person to die in my arms. This was a woman, younger than the others. She may have been about 50 years of age, but looked generations older. Her black hair, which had been shaved, was beginning to grow. She was clothed in tattered rags. She had barely the strength to lift her head. As I comforted her with words as best I could, and held her tight to me, gently stroking her face. As with the others, she knew I was with her, and I hoped that whatever words I had was able to give her some little comfort. When she died, and after I had recited the Kaddish, I knew I could no longer carry on, could not take any more of this terrible search I had faced day after day. I was removed from Belsen and sent back to join those members of the troop who had remained in our own little camp on the heath. Jewish people chose just one Hebrew word with which to describe the indescribable. Sure. The word means the burning, the desolation, the utterly wasted. This word still causes me to shudder when I hear it. While I was attempting to help those who were close to death, The population of the small town of Belsen, who had claimed they knew nothing of what went on in the camp, were made to come into the camp and see for themselves just what their compatriots had done. And also the men were made to bury the many hundreds of the as yet unburied and decaying dead. I'm quite sure they would have taken those memories with them to their own graves. But even in the village of Belsen, there was one ray of light and hope. One woman called me into her kitchen, removed some of the floorboards, and gave me a number of Hebrew Bibles and Siddurim, books which somehow or other she had managed to retrieve. How she got them, I don't know, but get them she did. And that was indeed bravery, as she could have been sent to the concentration camp itself if found out. After I came out of Belsen, I was posted to a small prisoner of war camp in Gulf, a district of Oldham was a district of little town near Manchester, and Delft was a suburb of Oldham. There I was in charge of maintenance of a section of the camp, and this pleased me for two reasons. One, I could be daily with my late wife Billy, and secondly, I would be able to take my revenge on those expletives deleted, as I imagined, monsters who would be in my charge. But to my surprise and annoyance, I was just not able to harm them in any way, not even to abuse them verbally. And I knew that had I done so, I would have started to sink almost to the level of the guards in Belsen, and that I had no intention of doing. I never lost my belief in God, but I did lose my belief that God was man's friend. To me, he was no longer man's friend, but man's enemy. If God was to be man's enemy, then I would be man's enemy to God. I would not attend synagogue, neither would I let my wife or children go, or my children to go to religion school. The religion I had held all my previous life left me. God was no longer in my equation. When I was demobilized, I joined the British Legion. I'm still a member. And the branch headquarters was in Cheetham Hill, Manchester. This was not a Jewish branch, but it had many Jewish members, as many Jews lived in that area. Each year at the festival of Hanukkah, the festival that remembered and celebrated the rededication of the temple desecrated by Antiochus IV Epiphanes, the Jewish members would march down to Albert Square, so line up in front of the town hall where we would be inspected by a general, an air admiral, or air marshal, or an admiral, and then back to headquarters for afternoon tea. Now I equated this with a secular occasion and took part. But in 1951, after the inspection, we marched round the square down Booth Street, which I knew, and down Jacksonsville, which is a street unknown to me. There was a very imposing building, which I did not know was a newly rebuilt Manchester Reformed Synagogue. And at that time I had never even heard of Reform, never even known there was a Reformed synagogue. The original synagogue had been blown up in the 1940 air raids on Manchester. Had I known, I would have broken ranks and sat on the steps outside until the others came out. It was too late. I was inside and trapped. The service was a memorial service to those who had lost their lives in 2 world wars. The interior of this beautiful synagogue the warmth, the music, the choir, the prayers, even the sermon delivered by the congregation's charismatic rabbi, who later was to become my mentor and friend, were, without my realizing it, gradually weaving their spell about me. Long forgotten memories stirred in my mind, and suddenly I felt as if I had been literally and violently slapped across my face by being exposed to the contents of the service. And that, my friends, I suppose was the start of the long road leading to me being an aged rabbi today. Thank you for listening to me. I can't say I have enjoyed telling you about Belsen. In fact, it is only the second time I have spoken about it. The very first time in all those years I have been able to talk about it at all without shedding tears was when I was invited to give this talk in Lincoln last year. My talk was purposely kept short. I wanted to talk for 30 to 40 minutes, but as I was working on this talk, I realized that I would become far too emotional, so I have kept this talk just long enough to allow me to cope with bitter memory, but without too much emotion overtaking me. I hope I have still managed to inform and interest you. If so, it has been my privilege to have been able to do this among you today. The time has now come when I feel I have to tell others, so that the same horrors may not happen again. I will be pleased to answer any questions you may have, and God bless you.
I think it's remarkable that you've managed to hold that in for so long and never been able to talk about it.
No.
Because they say that being able to talk helps you repair. So hopefully, maybe now that you are talking about it, it will help.
This isn't unique to me. Many people who have had terrible experiences don't talk about it. Many, many brave people who fought in the war didn't tell their experiences maybe for 70 years. But in this instance, there are many books, films, whatnot about Belsen and other concentration camps. But I think that nothing beats face-to-face talk and explanations, and that's why I feel I must do it. Now the point is that I've spoken to maybe 30 people, but if you each talk to one or two and tell them, explain, then it goes on and on and on, and that's what my hope is. Yes, please.
I've got two questions, if not too deep. First of all, you said that when you were in Belsen, you didn't cease believing in God. You believed that God was the enemy of the people.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you come to that belief rather than believing there was no God at all? And secondly, why did you cease believing that God was the enemy of the people?
Well, why I believe that God was the enemy is because of what I saw and experienced. Why I didn't believe that God didn't exist was perhaps the remnant of my upbringing. And why I refound my belief in God in the normal way that one believes in God was the effect of that synagogue service on me. I did literally feel as if I had been physically slapped across the face. And that was it. I thank you very much for listening, and God bless you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.